Cyrus the Great is the founder of something called the Persian Empire. So last class we discussed Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism is really the first great world religion because it provides a simple but powerful model of how the world works. And Zoroastrianism is powerful because it encourages everyone to be their best, right? To seek Asha. Now, for most people, what Asha means is don't ever lie, okay? And it is actually a really useful thing if you're trying to run an empire. Because when you run an empire, you need soldiers, you need generals, you need administrators, right? And if people don't lie, if people are honest and moral, well, you can expand really quickly, right? And so that's what Cyrus the Great did. Cyrus the Great is also known for his mercy and his generosity. So when he conquers a place, what he will do is he will identify the best people, maybe even the king himself, and make them advisors to his regime. Okay? He's known for his tolerance. He's known for his openness. And so what happens is that the Babylonian Empire basically surrendered to him without a fight. Why? Because of elite overproduction, right? You have this war going on between the upper nobility and the lower nobility, and they're like, you know what? Let's just invite Cyrus the Great, and then we don't have to fight each other anymore, okay? And that's how Cyrus the Great was able to build the first world empire, okay? This is Babylon, the fall of Babylon, and Cyrus the Great. There are different stories, but one story is that the elite basically invited him in order to resolve their inner conflicts with each other, okay? This is a tomb of Cyrus the Great. It's still in Iran today. There's a story that when Alexander the Great, who was Macedonian, when he went to conquer the Persian Empire, he discovered that the Cyrus the Great, his tomb was in bad repair. They didn't really maintain or upkeep it. So he ordered for it to be properly maintained, okay? That's probably, the story is by the way, probably false. But it shows you that at this time in history, about the year 300, 400, everyone, 300, 400 BCE, everyone was respectful of Cyrus the Great, okay? Cyrus the Great is considered the world's greatest king or emperor. Okay, so as you can see, the Achaemenid Persian Empire is huge, okay? It encompasses most of West Asia, okay? So it goes from Iran all the way to Mesopotamia, to Anatolia, to parts of Greece, and basically all of Egypt and Libya, okay? It's a huge area. And they were able to do this because of their innovations in religion as well as administration, okay? All right. So let me explain. How do you rule empires usually, okay? Well, the traditional way is you control trade routes and access, okay? So people have to pay you a tax to go through your trade routes. That's a traditional way. You can also use fear and conquest, and that's what the Assyrians were known for. They would come and they would kill everyone if you disobeyed them. You took hostages. That's a very common thing where you conquer people and you take the children of the king as hostages, okay? Intermarriage, religion. But what the Persians did really well that allowed for the Persian Empire to be so huge, as well as to be really well managed, are four things, okay? Effective administration. Again, when you have a religion, Zoroastrianism, where people can't lie, that's really good because these bureaucrats will now report real facts to the emperor, and that allows him to make better decisions, okay? Elite cooptation, meritocracy. And the idea here is that if you have a very effective administration, that allows for local elites to focus their energies on trying to join this administration as opposed to rebelling against you. Communication networks, okay? So things like roads, things like postal networks, okay? So the Persians create the first global postage system. And it was really effective where if you want to send mail from Egypt over to Mesopotamia, what would happen is you would have these royal roads where people would ride on horses and they could stop at basically a hostile, rest, and then keep on going, okay? And that way you can very quickly move information from one corner of the empire to the other. Okay? And the last is to divide and rule. Divide and rule is really important. So what they did was they basically had different power centers within a region. Okay, so you had the satraps, which were the local governors, but then you also had the bureaucrats. Okay, you also had the royal representatives. So these are different factions within a region. Okay, so divide and rule is probably the most effective way to control an empire. Okay, so now let's move on to Israel. Okay, we now know about the Persian Empire, how they managed their system and why they are so effective. Okay, now let's talk about Israel. So remember that we read the Bible, and the Bible came about because David needed to legitimize his rule. And after the Bronze Age collapsed, David created a Davidic kingdom in the Levant, because Egypt, Anatolia, Mesopotamia were preoccupied, right? But because the Levant is so important, this Davidic kingdom doesn't really last that long. It lasts like 80 to 100 years, okay? After Solomon, David's son, dies, Israel is divided into two parts. The northern kingdom, which gets conquered by Assyria, as well as Judah, okay, Jerusalem, which tries to maintain the Davidic kingdom, but doesn't last very long. At this time in history, the Israelites are being pulled in different directions, okay? The Anatolians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, because they are strategically very important. And so what's really hard for these empires is, how do we maintain control over Jerusalem? Okay, and they try different techniques. They try burning down their city centers, okay? So the northern kingdom was destroyed. You might have heard of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They tried taking hostages, okay? But because this region is so volatile, nothing really works. And so the Jerusalem, the Israelites keep on rebelling. Okay? So this is the kingdom of Judah. And what happens is, for the longest time, the Babylonians are trying to deal with the Israelites, okay? So they take hostages. Okay, they take hostages, like thousands of them, and move them to Babylon, where they become scribes, where they become farmers, where they become merchants. Okay, but again, the region is so strategically important that Jerusalem, the Israelites, they switch loyalties all the time. Eventually, the Babylonians are so pissed off that they decide to burn down their temple. Okay, and so at this point in history, the Israelites are now gone. Okay, does that make sense? The Israelites are gone now. 587 to 6, we don't know when, but Babylonians destroy Jerusalem because they cannot, they tried many techniques to try to control Jerusalem. They can't do it. The Israelites are too rebellious, but it's too strategically important, so they destroy, so they decide, you know what, screw this, we'll just destroy the city, okay? So when this happens, okay, this is really important to understand, the Israelites are gone, okay? The people are still around, but the identity of the Israelites are now gone. 539, Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon, okay? And he says, I want the Israelites to return to Jerusalem. It's called the Edict of Cyrus, all right? And this is celebrated in the Bible. What is controversial is, why would he do such a thing, okay? Because again, the Israelites are now gone. The Israelites who went to Babylonia, they may still keep their religion a bit, but they no longer have their land. They have changed as a people, okay? So as an Israelite, you pray in the temple, but the temple is now destroyed, so now you pray in the synagogue, okay? So the people have changed a great deal. So the question now is, why would Cyrus the Great go to Babylon and say, you know what, I want you Israelites to return to Jerusalem. I want you to reconstitute the nation of Israel. Why would he do that? Okay, so this is going to be a debate that will never ever end, okay? So the Bible tells us that Cyrus the Great did this because God told him to do that. Really simple. God says, I love my people, the Israelites, send them home. Okay, and Cyrus the Great says, yes, of course, you're the great God, I'll do so, okay? Guys, that's how it happened, okay? All right, so there are different explanations. Maybe the idea is that Cyrus wants to show all the Persian Empire, I'm religiously tolerant. You can practice your religion, you can celebrate your religion. That's what the Persian Empire is, an open, tolerant, generous empire, okay? That's true. What's also true is that Cyrus found himself as a righteous and merciful king who wanted to be generous to everyone, okay? So he saw the Israelites want a home, he says, well, go home, okay? It's also possible that there's a faction within the Israelites who supported his Babylon takeover, okay? I don't know if this is true, it's probably not true, but we consider that as a possibility. That the Israelites in Babylon supported his takeover, and so to thank them, Cyrus said, fine, I'll give you back Jerusalem. Another possibility is that when Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, he discovered that, you know what, these Israelites are really good administrators. And this is true throughout history because remember, the Israelites had their Bible, and their religion requires them to study the Bible. And as we discussed, the Bible is one of debate, openness, asking questions. And so these are very literate intellectuals. And they rise up very high in the Babylon administration. But this is true throughout history where Jewish people will rise very high in all empires, including the Islamic Empire, including the American Empire, okay? I think the best reason for what happened is divide and rule, okay? So the idea is that you need to control the Levant. Because the Levant gives you access to Egypt, which is historically the wealthiest part of the world, okay? Whoever controls Egypt controls the world. So what you do is you set up a group of people in the Levant that are only loyal to you. Okay, does that make sense? Okay? You set up people in the Levant that only exist because you, the empire, allow them to exist. If you, the empire, did not support them, then the locals, everyone in that region would get rid of them right away, okay? And that's why we have the Jews. So the Jews were invented by the Persians to control the Levant. The Jews is actually a Persian term, okay? So before the Jews were, of course, the Israelites. Now we have the Jews. All right, so this is Jerusalem. And as you can see, what's really important to understand is that this is actually only a really small part of the Levant. But this part is specifically for the Jews. And it's part of this Persian province called beyond the river. Okay? And they call it the province of Yahu. That's why we have the term Jews. Okay? Because they are part of the province of Yahu. And what's really important to understand is they're surrounded by enemies. The Sumerians are Israelites who have stayed in the Levant. Okay, do you understand? So most people around them are in fact Israelites who adapted to local circumstances. And that means that they practice different religions. That also means that they married foreign women as well. But they still consider themselves as Israelites, okay?